Welcome back. Hour number 2 of Spooky Southcoast. Tim Weisberg here, along with Stephanie Burke. We are back.
We are back.
We are talking about a variety of different paranormal topics, but we're focusing on, connecting through spiritual means and spiritualism, the history of spiritualism a little bit, and also the effect that connecting with spirits can have on people. So you can call in at 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. We are getting some great conversation going in the chat room. You can join us there on Spooky TV at SpookySouthcoast.com. It's also on our YouTube channel, and it's also on our free app. So if you have an Android device or an Apple device and you would like to download the Spooky South Coast app, you can just go to the App Store for your particular device, and it's right there free of charge. What do you get in that app? You get the live video stream as it happens.
Right.
You get the chat room access. You get all of our social media feeds. You get the audio podcast, the video podcast on YouTube, all of that stuff,
And
all
you
right
get
there.
all the archives.
Right there for you.
Yes, very
Can't
easy.
go wrong. Although the archives are a little screwy right now. Some of the older stuff
That's
is
okay.
messed up. That's what happens when you have 11 years of a show.
Isn't that crazy to say?
I think when Hipcast originally, when we originally signed on with Hipcast, and they gave us the deal they gave us, they did not realize we were going to stick around for 11 years.
No.
And we would have almost 500 shows backed up on their storage.
Which is awesome.
So
I
don't blame them. I don't blame them for them creating an issue because we've got the best deal in podcasting going right now.
I'm sure. I was actually going through, Facebook goes through your memories or on this day. I was looking through and saw that I was posting that I was co-hosting with you 4 years ago this month. So it was this week, 4 years ago, that I came on as a temporary co-host, and then in May I became a permanent co-host.
Well, you weren't a temporary co-host then. We were trying to get you on full time.
Well, I didn't know at the time. That was your evil plan all along.
We were kind of auditioning you.
Well, I'm glad I made the cut.
Well, you're still auditioning.
Am I?
Yeah,
4
this
years
is
later.
just a 4-year audition. Yeah, you're still.
It's a long time. How am I doing?
So far, so good.
So far, so good.
So far, so good.
Okay.
But there was a share. Somebody did share something with us during the first hour. They emailed us, and you can do so as well. SpookyCrew@SpookySouthcoast.com. Would you like to share that email?
Give me 1 second.
Yeah,
and I will pull it up.
because sometimes people aren't comfortable with calling in. The phone number is 877-996-1420 if you do want to call in and share. Some people aren't comfortable sharing the story in their own voice. They'd rather just write it to us and send it to us that way. And you can do that. You can try and get us in the chat room, but the chat room flies by so fast as we're having the discussion. You can also reach out to us on Twitter using the hashtag SpookyLive during the show as well. But
So this email, we'll keep it anonymous for now, but if you want to call and talk to us about it, we'd be happy to talk to you. It says, I had a scary thing happen. I was in bed. It was 10:30 p.m. at night, and there was this huge figure standing near my bed. It was scary as heck. So anyway, I blessed the home with a sage, and no more recent activity had happened in the home, so that's all.
And so what is it about sage that has an effect on spirit activity?
I'd love to be able to give you the scientific answer to that, but there isn't one. It's something that dates back to even, Native Americans using. I personally, I'll use it, but I have my own concoction of my secret sauce energy spray that I use to get rid of things, but I also use a bunch of different methods as well. So
you have a special formula?
I do.
Can people buy it?
Mm-hmm. They can.
From you?
From me, yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I make it and I sell it. It clears energy.
Will they clear my nasal passages? Because that's what I could use right now.
I mean, I could make you want to do that too.
Okay.
But it clears the energy around you in your home, in your space, but it also clears your own energy. So without getting into a whole discussion about auras and energy and all that stuff, it clears you as well. So I actually became pretty popular with a lot of my clients because women were going home and spraying their husbands while they were sleeping, and their husbands were waking up in a wonderful mood. So it became magic husband spray. So that's how it kind of became like
people can use this on their own. They don't need to be shown any special methods.
No, you just have to spray it. But I usually give it to people that are, in need of being able to clear out whatever's going on in their home. I actually just gave it to somebody Saturday night because they had a huge problem. So I said, before I can get up there and take care of it for you, try this first and see how that goes.
So you're going to shave your head now and get a big gold earring and be the Mr. Clean of the paranormal?
I am not.
All right. Good.
I don't think that's going to look very good.
It probably would look wicked goofy.
Thank you. Thank you for agreeing with me.
It would.
I
well,
think
because
so.
you're a girl, so you should wear 2 earrings.
Oh, that's the only reason I'd look goofy,
Yes,
right? It's
that
just
was
one
the only
earring.
thing.
Yeah, not shaving my head.
That was the only thing. So we were talking in the last hour a little bit about spiritualism, and I had to have this discussion and this debate, and it's something that I just don't think people understand. But what we do now as paranormal researchers and investigators isn't that much different than what people were doing during that era.
No, it's not.
I mean, Danny Roberge, Big Beard Studios, has a brand new version of Echovox that is dropping on Monday, I believe.
Yeah, we were just talking about that before we went live.
Like everybody should get ready to check that out. But at the same time, yes, we're putting a lot of technological research into what it is that we're doing. But in the end, it's all the same thing. It's all trying to reach out and communicate with the spirit world, with these ghosts. So it's not that much different depending on if you're using a Ouija board.
Nope.
Or if you're using, some sort of a ghost box or an app, or even just, people scoff.
Yes.
At taking a flashlight and unscrewing the flashlight and seeing if that will work. And I kind of scoff at it a little bit too myself, because I know how easy it is to get a false positive out of that. But I've also had, I don't want to say I've had it, because I've never done it.
Right.
Because anybody that has ever been on an investigation knows that once I get there with flashlights, they don't work anymore. Like last Saturday night, as I'm pulling all these flashlights out of the box from the last event that we did, saying, all right, I'm putting fresh batteries into these. Who wants a flashlight? Why aren't these working? These are brand new batteries.
Right.
I just seem to kill flashlights.
You do.
But I've seen other people run those flashlight experiments while I was there and had amazing responses to what it is that they're asking. So in the end, it's all really just no different than asking Mr. Splitfoot to knock on the wall 3 times.
Right. I actually, I think people look at me as, I'm just the person that comes in and talks to whoever might be there. And I just do the medium thing. But, at least my background is an investigation. I was investigating for years before I wanted to tell anybody what I actually could do. And I like to experiment with things because I am a skeptic myself. And I believe we were in the old town hall in Wareham, and I had an EMF meter going on top of the flashlight because I wanted to see if there was any validity to the flashlight trick, because we had seen it on TV. A lot of people say it doesn't work. There's a scientific reason as to why it happens. I've seen YouTube videos that claim this and that as to why it happens. I wanted to see what would happen if I had an EMF meter and a flashlight go off at the exact same time. Whoever I was communicating with at that moment, there was historical documents to back up the names and the dates that I was coming up with. So I believe that I was actually talking to someone. But asking them to make both go off happened more than once at the exact same time. How do you explain that? How can you say it's not something?
I understand how a flashlight works. I understand how the connection is made with the battery from the 2 ends, and that's how it works. So I know that you could just give it the lightest little bit of pressure and it will light up. But that's kind of the idea of why you do it, because it only takes a little bit of pressure to make it light up.
Right.
So that's why if it's just like, hey, can you light the flashlight, make the flashlight go off? 10 minutes later, oh my God, the flashlight went off. They did it. But it's when it's responses to things and questions and being able to give out false information and have it not react to the false information, but then react to the correct information. It's.
Yep. It was a little too weird for me, and I'll never be able to prove it, just like everything else, but it surprised me. It really did. And it surprised the people that I was with too. At one point, I think, we were all it was an old vault, and it was 4 girls, and we were sitting there and everybody screamed at the same time because of how shocking it was that it actually happened. And it was up on a shelf. We were actually sitting in the dark, and we weren't anywhere near it, so it was even weirder.
So you mentioned the word that I think is starting to make less and less sense. You said you'll never be able to prove it, and I think that's the biggest problem here. Is let's stop looking for proof.
Yes.
Let's stop trying to say that we're going to come away with proof of something happening.
Stop using the word science.
Well, yeah, that goes without saying, because it's not. If science worked to prove this stuff, it would have already proved it. You can take a scientific-minded approach.
Oh, yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you're going to be able, because it doesn't fit into physics as we know it.
Right.
Now,
it's not meant to.
We're changing our definition of physics, and that could also change the way that it can fit.
Right.
But I'm just saying as of right now. And so, but the real big problem, though, is proof. No proof is ever going to prove it to everybody.
Right.
So you're not really looking for proof. You're looking for a validating experience. And you're looking for validating data to accompany that experience. So if you stop looking at this as trying to, go out there and I'm going to get that one thing that I can show to everybody and prove it to them, then you're in it for the wrong reason. I mean, you're in it for the right reason because your intention is good, but it's not going to happen.
I agree.
And I thought that 11 years ago. I was like, well, I'm going to be the one to capture proof that's going to set everybody's mind to the fact that this stuff is real. But you won't. And I've taken people to places and have them had experiences and have them still not want to believe those experiences happened to them.
Right.
You just got to accept. It comes with the territory.
What did you just say? You have to accept it? You have to accept that things can happen?
Right, but not what you're talking about.
No.
So
you can't shut me down like that.
But that's the issue that I think a lot of people have with this is they look at the way that somebody else gets to that experience and they say, well, that's not right.
Mm-hmm.
But it was right for them. I mean, it made the experience happen, and,
right.
and it made so. I don't know. I think that there's too much emphasis put on trying to come out. And if you look at the spiritualism era,
mm-hmm.
yes, there was people who were trying to prove that there were people hoaxing it.
Of course.
And there were people that were trying to prove the scientific rationale behind it and why it was happening. There were people who were perfectly willing to accept that there were people living people communicating with the dead, and we want to figure out how they're able to do so. So there was all kinds of dichotomies going on. But in the end, a lot of people, and the majority of people who were involved in it, were just in it for the experience. And if you believe everything, then sure, you're going to be taken for a fool at some point in time.
Right.
But if you're going into it with at least a healthy dose of skepticism and saying, I really want to have something happen that will, make me believe,
mm-hmm.
then it can happen for you. So I think that's just the biggest problem is we think that because we're walking into this experience of interacting with a ghost with something that we spent, $1,000 on,
mm-hmm.
on a website, that we need to have a much more validating reason for it.
Right.
We need to have a much more stronger result as a result of using it than just going in and having a cool experience.
But are we any further along now than we were then?
No.
I don't think so either.
No.
I think it's just more technological, but I don't think it's any...
We're further along in being able to share the experience with other people.
Right.
And being able to...
Well, yes and no.
No, I don't mean have them happen to it
mm-hmm.
too. I mean be able to share with them what happened to us.
Right.
So, all right. You go into a haunted place
mm-hmm.
in the 1800s
mm-hmm.
by yourself. You have a ghost experience. You come out. The only thing you have to back up your ghost experience is your word.
Right.
You go into a haunted house by yourself in 2017 with a bunch of gear. You come back out. You have your story, but you may also have some anomalous readings.
Right.
You may also have an audio recording of what took place. You may also have a video recording of what took place.
Right.
And so now all of a sudden you have a little bit more stuff to share with somebody for them to consider your
right.
experience a little bit more valid.
We have recorders. We have, multiple ways to take pictures. We have that, but I still feel like it's basically the same level as it was before, just different means of doing it.
And I don't think, again, I have to take my brain out of 11 years of talking about this stuff on a regular basis.
Right.
But I don't think that showing a majority of the world the stuff that you have come away with from being in that haunted house and all of these anomalous pieces of data and video and photos and all that stuff, they're not really looking at that and being like, holy crap, ghosts are real because you just showed me this.
Right.
But what they're saying is, holy crap, what happened to you was real.
Right.
So it's still, it's just them accepting your story, not accepting everybody's story.
I think we've at least opened people's minds up to the idea of, wow, Tim and Stephanie had an experience at the S.K. Pierce Mansion. Maybe we should go next time. Maybe it can happen to us. And that's just opening people's minds up a little bit more than they were previously. And I tell people this all the time. If I can have a conversation with you and that opens your mind up to the possibility of something else out there, that's all that matters. Mission accomplished. My job here is done.
But if you're too open, then you're going to think everything's an experience too. So there is a line to be walked.
Meeting the right person helps to guide you and mentor you. And that goes back to my argument with you in the last hour.
Well, we do have some calls stacked up here. And
yes,
you can call in as well, 508-996-0500. Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. My name is Angel, and I have some paranormal experiences. It was pretty crazy.
Sure. You want to share them with us?
I'm sorry, you cut out. Wait,
I said go right ahead and share with us if you'd like to.
Okay. My husband, he just passed a year ago.
I'm sorry for your loss.
He and I lived in this town in northern Indiana, and we were going to purchase the house. So we were living there, and everything was good. And then, about a month into the house, we started noticing little things here and there, like little noises and stuff. But we were new to the house, so we just decided that, it's just a new house. It's going to have these kind of noises and things. Well, I have cats, and they say, cats can see spirits. Well, there was a lot of times the cats are like climbing at the walls after something that wasn't even there. And I just thought, well, it's probably a spider or something like that, and I'm not seeing it. Well, then one day, and my husband's a truck driver, or was a truck driver. Sorry, it's hard to talk in past tense with him. But he was a truck driver, so I was always home a lot by myself. But he was in the kitchen with me, and we heard somebody come through the back door and saying hello, and we thought it was my brother, and we're like, hello, and we're, come on in. Nobody come around the corner, so, and we looking at each other going, we did just hear that, right? And he's like, yes, and we went around the corner, and nobody was there, and the door was shut. That was pretty interesting. But then it built up. I have a electric fireplace, and I'm sitting there in the living room watching television, and all of a sudden my fireplace just comes on by itself. I'm like, okay, so I click it off, I get up, and I go to bed because I'm not going to question anything when this stuff happens. So then another night I'm sitting there, and I had a really bad upset stomach, and I was eating some saltine crackers. And you know how the cellophane on the crackers are kind of stiff and everything, and I had twisted them and set them there beside my chair. And next thing I know, it's opening up and then straight up, and then it looked like somebody's hand was going down into the cellophane trying to get a cracker.
Oh, wow.
Freaked me out. So, again, I got up. I went to bed. I'm not going to question anything because I don't want to talk to something. So then another night, I'm back in the living room. This time my husband's home. And we're in the living room, and we have the DVD player hooked up to the TV so we can listen to some of the audios that he would listen to while he was in the truck to pass some time. And we had the Bible on, and we were listening to Revelations. And we got through all that and everything, and it was late, and we went to bed. Well, that night, you could hear the TV, and the voice was deep and everything, and I thought, who turned the TV on? and I couldn't get up. I was going to set up, and our bedroom is right there by the living room. And I could see out, but I'm not seeing the TV light on or anything. And I'm hearing this deep voice, but I can't move. I can see, I can hear, but I can't get up. And the next thing I'm freaking out, but then I'm trying to see him. He's laying there, and I'm fighting, trying to get up. And I hear this other voice, but in my head, because I can't speak or anything, I'm using the Lord's Prayer. And I'm feeling myself like hitting a brick wall, trying to get up and trying to get through this, and I felt myself sink. And I was like, oh, no, you don't. So I kept praying in my head, and then finally I let go. Well, it was early in the morning. It was about 7 in the morning. My husband had gotten up, and I normally would sleep in a little bit. Well, I was frustrated. So I go into the living room, and he's sitting there. He's like, you're up awful early. I said, I had a really bad night. He says, not me. I had a sermon at the end of the bed. I said, what do you mean you had a sermon? I said, did you hear that too? He says, yeah. He says, I seen these people at the end of the bed that have robes and everything. I said, well, good for you, but I couldn't get up, and I was being pushed down. He says, I could see him, and I said, I could hear him, and was freaking me out. So needless to say, we bought another house somewhere else and moved the next month.
Oh, well, thank you very much for calling in and for sharing.
Thank you.
All right, have a great night.
Thank you.
That's how some people do it, though. Some people say, oh, that's enough.
Yep.
Time to move.
Which is totally okay.
And which is fine, because there's always weirdos like us that are willing to buy the house that you're trying to move out of.
Absolutely.
508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. Good evening. You're next on Spooky South Coast.
Yeah, hi, Tim. Hi, Stephanie.
Hello.
Hey.
I'm listening to you talk tonight, and I got a dumb question to ask.
There's no dumb questions, only dumb people that you can ask them to, such as me.
Well, I've heard stories about, ghost stories and whatnot, and one of the strangest stories I heard was about a ghost telling the people, why are you haunting us from the future? Have you heard of anything like that?
There's some school of thought that that's exactly what it is that we are experiencing, that what we're experiencing is I don't want to get too much into the multiverse theory, but there's a lot of scientific research being done right now on the idea of there being multiple versions of the universe.
Okay, here's my stupid question now. Is it possible for us to be haunted by a ghost who's not yet born yet?
By a ghost that's not yet born. So,
like something from the future.
My gut feeling, and from what I've experienced, is I think that if we're getting a window that's opening, our window opens into our past. So I think that it's hard for us to see into a window of something into the future. There is a theory that when people encounter UFOs and aliens, that those are actually just time travelers, future human beings. But it's a little bit more of an out there theory. I think in terms of ghost theory, I think that our window opens up to what has come behind us, because I don't know if we would recognize what's to come. You know what I mean? I think because we don't have a frame of reference for the past. Yeah, so we can understand when we think a ghost is a Civil War ghost, because we understand what the Civil War was. I think anything coming from the future, I think that our minds wouldn't be able to quite comprehend yet.
Oh, because, I'm thinking it wouldn't be us opening up a window. It would be them opening up a window to us.
Right, and that's entirely possible that, but what that would be is it wouldn't be, somebody alive in the 1800s is looking into this window. What it would be, if that was the case, is just in their universe, it's still the 1800s. And their version of the universe is what our universe was 100 years ago. And so they're rubbing up against each other, and one can see into the other. So we see into the past, and they would be seeing into their future, but it doesn't work that way on our plane of existence, if you get what I'm saying. I'm kind of talking around your question, but I think you kind of get what I'm saying.
I understand it perfectly, but it was just a curiosity type question on my part.
I mean, I'd love to think that, that a lot of the times that what we could be encountering when we have a ghost activity could be our future self. Maybe this is just us from the future after we've kind of left this body and turned into something else. Maybe that is us coming back to look back into our lives, look back into what happened in the past. But I don't know. I get the feeling that even though time isn't really anything that we can really put our finger on being legitimate and not a man-made construct, I do think that for our version of time, it has to keep moving forward, and we can look to the past, but we can't really look ahead.
Yeah. Steph, how about you? Have you ever had a meeting with somebody where it was strange, where they told you things from the future?
So in general, speaking with, if I'm doing a reading for someone and I'm contacting their past loved ones, sometimes they will bring future information, depending on the spirit and depending on, how long they've been passed. And they will bring in, for example, they'll tell me somebody's pregnant or somebody's going to become pregnant and what it will be. That's just a small example, but they have brought up, certain things that are going to occur in the future. So yes, I have experienced that.
See, that's what's strange about it, because they can see beyond us, but we can't see beyond ourselves. You get what I'm saying? In other words, they can see, like you say, into the future, past, we'll say, this period in time, but I can't see past this period in time.
You can, if you know what you're doing and you know how to do it.
Well, I don't mean like me being a psychic. I mean like something in the future impacting me, like them seeing something and telling me, oh, so and so is going to have a baby, and it's going to be a boy, and they're going to name it whatever. Something would have to impact me from out there coming towards me, rather than me seeing something, looking out that window. It would have to be somebody else opening the window and looking in at me and telling me.
It could happen either way. I've had it happen both ways, where I just know something and, I take note of it or write it down and it does happen. Or I've had someone come to me and tell me specific information. And speaking in psychic terms, everybody has intuition. Everybody has the ability to develop psychic abilities, because it's there within all of us. It's just a matter of, think of it as practicing a musical instrument. You don't really know that you have a natural ability to do it unless you pick one up and you start practicing. And some people are better at it than others when they first start. And the more that you practice, the better that you can get. But with mediumship, it's much more difficult. And not everybody that develops psychic abilities will develop mediumship abilities. You might be able to scrape the surface. You might totally suck at it. It really just depends on the person and what they're meant to do and how far they're meant to go. But everybody can develop those psychic abilities where you do, start to know things ahead of time. Very simple. Days before caller ID, did your phone ever ring and you say to yourself, like, immediately, you just know who it is before you even pick it up?
Oh yeah, I've had.
Okay, so that's a very small, basic example of what you are capable of knowing. You just don't realize it because you just assume that you're a really good guesser. But if you practice that and you hone in on it, you can absolutely do what I do.
All right.
Well,
thank you very much for the call.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tim. And keep up the good work.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. You brought up something interesting there in that in that response, and that I've often said that, being psychic isn't, like, I don't really consider that to be a gift.
Okay.
I consider it to be something, I think in terms of the psychic abilities that you have, I think everybody can.
Yes. I teach people how.
And I think that everybody eventually will. But that is just one part of our brain that is open on yours and not on mine.
Right.
Mediumship's different. Mediumship is a gift, and I don't think everybody can do that.
Right.
And I think that it's probably the fact that you have that mediumship ability that has activated that part of your brain.
I don't know what did. I know I was born with it activated. That's what I tell people all the time. I think of it as like a light switch being turned on. Mine was already there.
But
so.
I'm just going to, I'll ask you this, and you don't have to give me an answer now. You can take time and think about it and get back to me. But you deal with a lot of people, and we talk about this all the time about where people get the gift from. Mm-hmm. And that some people are born with it, some people develop it, some people have an accident and it comes to them.
Yes.
Some people decide they want to try it and work at it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and when we say people can't just suddenly decide that they want to become a medium.
Very true. Like,
you can't just say to yourself, that talking to the dead thing looks like a pretty interesting way to spend the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. I want to get into that. Mm-hmm. Because even if that situation does happen,
right,
it's because that they were kind of called to it being that way. So I just want you to think about this and think about how many people have come to you. Let me see if I can phrase this right the way that let me try and get the thought out that I'm trying to have.
Okay.
I want to know how often people come to you to become psychic that already have mediumship tendencies. And how many people... Basically, I just want to know if the data proves what I just said before, of the fact that everybody can be psychic, not everybody can be medium. Are more people coming to you?
Well, what you just said, the psychic or the medium, that's well known.
Please use your psychic abilities to figure out what I'm trying to say, because I can't say it.
I want to say a million things already from what you've said. So people come to me, and I have noticed, same thing with, teaching Reiki or the million things that I do. I feel like they're drawn to it. I don't have just regular Joe Schmo coming to me and saying, I want to do this. And, okay, so my personality. For those that have been listening to me for the past 4 years have got to have picked up on the fact that I'm a pretty tough cookie. I don't take this lightly. I take it extremely seriously. This is my life. It's something that I did not ask for. I was forced into by having the family connection and not really having a choice and not realizing I was different. And it's not something that I decided, I want to do this for the rest of my life. I could sit here and give you an entire list of careers that I tried or that I went to school for, or college for, and, working toward a degree for that was totally far off of being a psychic medium. I eventually had to just break down and do it because it was consuming my life. And I absolutely love it, and I love having this ability and being able to work with it. And I really don't think I'd want to be different, but I warn people all the time, this isn't something that, oh, wow, that's so cool, you can know things. Oh, wow, it's so cool, you can talk to whoever you want at any point in time. And I tell people, you want to learn, that's great, I'll teach you. You're not going to take one class and walk out of here and start charging for readings like many people I know have done. It's going to be frustrating. It's going to be aggravating. There's going to be tears shed. There's going to be sweat shed. There's going to be blood shed. You don't know. I'm not going to let you off easy.
I hope you don't bleed, because that would be an aneurysm.
Right. So I didn't say internal, okay. But I make it tough because this isn't the type of business that you can just go off and screw with people. It's not okay to do that. So, and I have had students of mine that have left and tried to give readings and tried to charge for readings the next day. And I'll be honest with people, if they ask me, they'll drop my name everywhere and say, oh, I learned from her. I said she took like a 3-hour class with me and that's it. And it's not to put anybody down, but you have to go through this journey. It's a path that you have to walk on, and you have to live and breathe. And once you open that door, you can't close it.
I think I've found a way to put it into words.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say. It's probably been an experience where people come into you that want to become psychic who already have mediumship abilities. People aren't coming into you to be psychic and then later find out that they're well, they might find out that they're You know what I mean?
So,
like I'm saying, the mediumship will the mediumship will trigger the psychic ability. The psychic ability does not trigger mediumship, is what I'm saying.
Correct.
Okay.
All mediums are psychic. Not all psychics are mediums.
That's all right.
But
I knew you'd have a better way of saying what I was trying to say.
I know mediums that phenomenal mediums. One of them you know very well refuse to have anything to do with their psychic side.
Well, sure. I mean, that's your choice.
I think it's just almost a fear or not really knowing where to go with it or how to deal with it. It's there. You just don't practice it as much as someone like I do. So I have helped medium friends get more in touch with their psychic side because they need to.
But as we said, that people can't just sit at home and say, I think I want to become a medium. That sounds like fun.
You can't.
So, but that being said, can somebody say, sit at home, never had any flashes of any of this, say, I think I'm going to become psychic because that sounds fun, and because Stephanie says that anybody can learn to become a psychic? And is it possible that they start down that journey and then realize that they have mediumship abilities? Does that happen?
If they're naturally drawn to it and it is there within them, it is possible. I have had people come to my classes. So what I do is I normally teach psychic development first. You need to start somewhere. That's a basic foundation. You kind of need to understand how that works before you go into anything else. And I've had people in my class refuse to learn that and just start trying to read people's past loved ones. And I've told them, like, you have to stop. If you have an ability for it, that's great. We'll deal with that in mediumship development. But right now you need to learn this, because if you don't learn this, you're not going to do well in that second class. And it's not meant to be tough. It's meant to, you need to really, like, you know, full circle, you know, look at everything. That's a huge spectrum, but you need to learn the basic first.
So learning the basics of psychic development, does that give you the ability to pick up on people's emotions?
Yes.
And give you the ability to pick up on people's, you know, so just some of their own thoughts of what it is that they might be going through?
Depending on, because now you're going to get deep into this, psychic abilities go from, you know, A to Z. Telepathy being one of them. Not everybody can do that. So, same thing, like, I can look at you right now. I can tell you what you're thinking. I can tell you your past. I can tell you your future. I can tell you what's going on right now. I can tell you how you're feeling. I can tell you pretty much anything you want to know. Psychic readings are all about reading the person and their energy in front of you, what they have going on. But it can also be psychometry. But psychometry can also be done in mediumship as well. And so, you know, if I wanted to, you know, if you hand me your wedding band, which you wear every single day, I can read you, which I do in my classes as well. And I screw everybody up and I put everything in a bag and everybody chooses something and they have to read. I have them write down, you know, everything that you're getting off of this piece of whatever somebody brought. And then, you know, match it to the person just so you can see how well that you can do it. But you can also do it with a past loved one's picture, past loved one's object, and that would be mediumship. So telepathy is not something everybody can do. Psychometry, I absolutely hate psychometry. I cannot stand doing it because it makes me feel uncomfortable, but I am good at it. But not everybody can be. So there's different parts of psychic abilities that you can be amazing at, and then there's other stuff that you cannot be amazing at.
So then is it possible that you are thinking, because, you know, we've talked to, and I always ask the question whenever we have a medium on, whenever we're going to give readings, and caller, we will get to you. So just hang on. Let me wrap this up. But I always ask the question, you know, how does your gift work? How does it come to you? And some people can be like you, where there's somebody that walks right up and stands next to somebody.
Right.
Other people are just getting it in their head.
Yep.
You know, everybody kind of receives it a different way. How do you define then when what you're doing is actual mediumship and when it is just you're picking up on the psychic energy of the person who is looking to make that connection?
The basic answer that I can give you, because everybody is different, is myself, because I can speak for myself at least. If I'm near somebody and I can hear your thoughts and I know that's what you're thinking, I've been doing this now professionally about 13 years. My entire life, not professionally. So I know the difference between a person coming to me, being able to see, you know, a past person and have them say, hey, tell this person that's standing next to you this. Like, Tim, if you had somebody that came in, your past loved one was saying, please tell Tim this, or please tell him this. It's coming from a different source where I'm reading you and I can just pick up on different things that you have going on, or I can also hear your thoughts, which would be more in the first person, not the third person, which is the easiest way that I can describe it without going into very deep details.
Side note, just side question. Has anybody ever, and I don't want you delve into this because I wouldn't. You're my friend. I don't want you giving me readings.
I know.
But has anybody ever come up to you that said that they're somebody that's attached to me? Have you ever actually had to encounter that?
Yes.
Okay. I apologize then on their behalf.
It happened the night that we were filming in Wareham.
Yeah, but that was on purpose. I mean, that we were trying to make a connection for somebody in the room.
Right.
But I mean, also it's quite possible that some of my relatives might just come up to you and start trying to talk to you.
I kind of try to ignore it, at least while I'm here, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to focus.
You probably should ignore them, is what I'm, because
Okay.
they're just going to talk your ear off.
Awesome.
So that's basically what I'm telling you.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Like I would never be like, hey, I need you to channel my grandmother and kind of like just, share some of the things that she's saying, because that's one phone call to the dead you would never get off of.
No, you don't think so?
No, my family is quite chatty, especially when it comes to talking about stuff like this. And speaking of chatty, you can call in at 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. Good evening. You are next on Spooky South Coast.
Hi. I wanted to get back to one of the things you were talking about earlier.
Sure.
And this comes out of the fact that have you heard of the movie that's coming out on Netflix in the next month or so, or something like that? There's a trailer that I saw a couple weeks ago called The Discovery. And it's a movie on Netflix with Robert Redford and other big names. And the basic thing is a scientific discovery proving the afterlife. And they get into the whole thing of what does this mean and all of the fallout from that.
Yeah, I mean, it looks really good. I've seen the trailer for it. It looks fantastic. I mean, and I'm just taking a quick look here, seeing when the release date is. March 31st. So, and I'm sorry, your question about it again was?
Well, the question that gets into this is sort of like you're talking earlier about investigation and so on, is, okay, so let's say you actually prove in a regular scientific knock-on-wood manner that there is life after death, that these things are real. Then what's the game after that? Because
Right.
people have been trying to prove the afterlife or whatever else in one way or another. So what happens after that?
And that's the question. I know, at least in the series, the idea behind that is that there's a number of people that are like, oh wait, there's an afterlife and it's better than this, and then they just kill themselves because they want to get to that afterlife faster. I think the problem with that is first of all, I mean, if we prove that there is an afterlife, if we prove that there is something beyond this, then it breaks down a lot of the man-made constructs around that. Because if we can prove that there's an afterlife, and let's just say that not only can we prove it, but that somebody can say, hey, I'm the most notorious serial killer in the history of the world, and I'm speaking to you from the great beyond. We're like, well, wait a minute. This guy was a bastard, and he got to wherever this place is. So why do I have to live this great life? Why can't I live a life of sin? Why do I have to go to church? Why do I have to go to temple? And so you would see probably a complete breakdown of a lot of religion.
Well, yeah, no, I can see that. My own personal opinion is in favor of an afterlife, but I think that a lot of it also depends on personal awareness and also personal responsibility. The fact that you are a reprehensible person in this life doesn't mean that you get to get away from all of the stuff that you did bad just because you drop a body on the sidewalk and you go someplace else.
Right. Well, and I think that that's part of it too. Is the fact that, again, as I said, a lot of the rules that we put into this are man-made constructs, and I think that that's a lot of kind of, I don't want to say what's taken ownership of the afterlife, but it kind of has. Like whatever your belief system is what gives you your belief system of what the afterlife is. So it becomes one of those things where, why are you following that path? Why are you following that doctrine if the end result is going to be the same for everybody? And I think that's the number one reason why we've been told over the years that religions look at what we do, what Stephanie does with her abilities, what, somebody like me might do as a paranormal researcher, why we're told it's wrong to talk to ghosts and why we're wrong to talk to spirits, is because they might give us the answers that we would otherwise be looking to from a church, from a temple, from a synagogue, because all of a sudden we're getting the answers directly from the source. What do we need this other institution for? And why do we need to keep giving this other institution power when the power actually lies in being able to talk to these beings on our own?
Yeah, and it also reminds me of there's that old comedy routine that someone did. Is like there's this guy saying, "Welcome to hell." And, oh, by the way, the Mormons were right, or whatever it was the punchline. It's like you have all these options of what is the actual truth, and you don't know which way it's going to shake out. And people are going to they're going to be a little bit nervous about did they make the right choice or whatever.
Right. I mean, I think in the end, if the afterlife is a natural progression of just being sentient beings. If it's just the inevitable of what's going to happen to us, then in the end, none of what we do here matters. None of what anybody else tells us we have to do matters. It's just a natural progression. And I think that that's the biggest fear that people have is because if we know that there's no longer a need, because the biggest fear on earth that you can use against somebody is the fear of death. That's why terrorism works. So the reason why, not that it works. That's why terrorists proceed that doctrine, because they know that instilling terror in people gives you power over them. And so that's the biggest fear that's the biggest fear that people have.
Them, then there you go.
Right. So if there's no reason for anybody to be afraid of dying, and if there's no reason for anybody to be afraid of making it to that next level of existence, then you have no more power to hold over anybody.
True. I think, you're talking about a natural progression. I still think that it's still going to be rooted somehow in these personal choices and decisions that you make. That, it's out as the old joke of good news and bad news. We are responsible, but yes, we are responsible. It's
right.
Good news and it's bad news at the same time.
Yep. And I think that's pretty much life. That's what I think that it all boils down to.
Yeah, I get bad news. Yeah, you're responsible. I get good news. Yes, you are responsible. There's hope and not so much. There's hope and fear on both sides of it. Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you. I just want to bring that up, and because it's an interesting question. Okay, what happens what's the end game if you just find out? Oh, yes, it has been proven.
Right. It's happening, and we're going there, and it doesn't matter what you do. And so, yeah, some people might say, hey, I'd rather just go for that now.
Yep.
All right. Well, Thank you very much for the call.
You're welcome.
Take care.
Bye.
And, that's certainly going to be a movie I'll be checking out when it comes out.
Sounds interesting.
I saw the ad for it a couple weeks ago, and as soon as I saw it, you don't really realize exactly what it's all about at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But then as the trailer goes on, you're like, oh, whoa. Because that would happen. If you found out there was an afterlife and it was better than this, how many people would off themselves to just reach it faster?
Yeah.
And how many people would say, wait a minute, I'm going there no matter what? Why am I living this life that I'm living now?
Mm-hmm.
Because as 5 minutes left.
I was gonna say it's a long discussion for
5 minutes left to get dangerous into this. But we did a whole show one time, years and years and years ago, where we talked about, the nature of good and evil and the nature of bad and good are all human constructs anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And it's your version of bad and my version of bad are two different things.
Absolutely.
There's people who go out there and kill but think that they're totally justified and right in doing so.
Mm-hmm.
And just because it goes against our social mores, would killing even be a bad thing if we found out that there was this greater afterlife beyond? Does that take away the stigma then of murder?
It could.
It still would, but
yeah.
Do we consider a Dr. Kevorkian a murderer now, or is he just somebody who's helping somebody transition to that next plane of existence? I
think that's probably what they believe.
And think about it. If you are somebody whose job it is, if you are a spiritual leader, if you're a member of the clergy,
mm-hmm.
and your job is to make people feel closer to God, then wouldn't you be considered obsolete then if
Yes.
people realize that they're already that close to God.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I think a lot of religions have stood in the way of what it is that we do over time, over millennia, because they don't want those questions to be answered by people.
Right.
Because listen, chances are God doesn't talk to them.
Well, yes, and I've been told by certain people of certain religions that what I do is talking to the devil, but their, I don't know what you want to call them, whether, their special person at their church, whatever their particular title might be in that religion, is the only person that's allowed to have abilities like mine.
Right, but they might think they're talking to God, but they could be talking to the same spirits that you would be talking to.
Right.
Very
religious people tell me all the time. I had somebody tell me something about myself that they told me God spoke over them. It was 100% accurate. I don't think it was God. I think it was their intuition.
We have about 2 minutes left. We'll take this call very, very quickly. In case we don't get to it, we just want to let everybody know that we'll be back next week with our guest, R. Gary Patterson, my favorite guest of all time. I don't even shy away from saying that. All right. Good evening. You're next on Spooky South Coast. We got about a minute. What's on your mind?
Okay, I just want to ask Stephanie a question. You made a comment that you said you did not choose this, that you were forced into it.
Yes.
Your gift. But I was wondering, could it have been something to do with the life contract you made before you got here?
Absolutely. I absolutely feel that way. I feel that way about everything that we choose in our lives and different milestones that we go through and different tragedies or different big life-changing experiences.
All right. Well, thank you for having a question we can answer in a minute.
Okay, thank you.
Have a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.
And that will pretty much do it for tonight's show. As I mentioned, next week we will be joined by R. Gary Patterson. If you've never heard any of the shows that we've done with him in the past, this is a guy who specializes in rock and roll legends and curses. We did a whole episode with him where we talked about all of the death clues in the Beatles songs and about whether or not Paul McCartney actually died and of course it's a hoax, but we talked about all that. We talked about the 27 Club, which is all these rock stars who die at the age of 27. We talked about whether or not some bands like Lynyrd Skynyrd are cursed. So great. And you can check out the past episodes by going to SpookySouthCoast.com and looking for R. Gary Patterson's name and go on our app and you can find the archives. But we will have him on next week. I don't even know what we're talking about, but it doesn't matter.
No, it's going to be interesting.
I know he's got some new stuff in the works, so I don't know exactly what we're focusing on, but it's just absolutely 100% one of my favorite guests my favorite guest of all time. I'm not even shy about it anymore. I mean, there's some that are really close, 1A, right behind Gary, but whenever anybody's like, what's your favorite show you've ever done? R. Gary Patterson, every time. Just a matter of picking which one of the shows that he's been on that I like the best. So we'll talk with him next Saturday night when we'll be back to talk more about the paranormal, as we are each and every Saturday night. Remember to go to SpookySouthCoast.com during the week. Follow along with us on social media to see all the news stories that we post up there for you to interact with us and to maybe even have your comments read during the week in Weird here on the show. And, of course, you can always get all of our archives there. It's all free of charge. Download our app, the Spooky South Coast app for iTunes, for iOS and for Android. It's all there. It's all free. And just reach out to us if you have any issues. SpookyCrew at SpookySouthCoast.com. So until next week, stay spooktacular.